Okay, I bought a pretty interesting lunchbox. It doesn't look like one, but it is a lunchbox. Made by Isosteel. And they marketed this pretty heavily on Amazon as being made in Germany, but or being at least a German company, but you can clearly see that when it came in it says made in China, which is kind of disappointing. So what this is a lunchbox. And I decided that I'm trying to eat a little bit healthier, so I'm going to start bringing my own food into work. But, the thing is that there's no real place for me to store my lunch. And in a regular lunchbox, it's always warm. And I don't really like that fact that it doesn't really keep the heat in that well. But this one is different because this is a vacuum thermos. So there's three types of different heat transfer that you can do. You can do either conduction, convection, or radiation, and their effectiveness goes down as I listed. So the best one to conduct heat is conduction, i.e. that's why it's called conduction. Convection is the second best, and radiation is the worst. So an example of each. If you take a hot pan out of the oven and it's metal, and you touch it, you're going to get burned. But you can put your hand right next to it and you won't get burned. So the heat transfers very easily through material. You need a material in order for conduction to actually happen. And depending on the material, it's either better or worse. So metal is obviously a very good conductor. Anything that's electrically conductive is also very thermally conductive. And wood or a oven mitt is not as good. But convection's even worse. So like keeping your hand right above the hot pan, you'll feel the warmth, but you won't get anywhere near being burned from it unless it's a super hot pan. Convection is usually what you use for insulation in your walls. These walls have foam in between them. So if you since it's a poor conductor, if you can trap a lot of air, or poor way to transfer heat, if you can trap a lot of different small pockets of air, it takes a long time for the heat from the inside to go to the outside, or the cool from the inside to go to the outside. But the worst one is radiation. And so for conduction, you need some type of material. For convection, you need a liquid, i.e. either gas or water, or whatever. And the last one, you don't need anything. It operates in vacuum. But it's a function of the hot body, or the inside, the surface area, and the outside temperature. And the bigger the difference between the two, the more heat gets transferred. So it's the general equation for radiation is like, I'm not sure if it's sigma. It's some constant times the surface area times the temperature of the hot to the power 4 minus the temperature of the cold to the power 4. And that's a solved equation. There's differential equations for it as well. But what that means is that this constant that's in front is really, really, really small. And so the hotter the difference that you can get, the hotter the difference between the two sides, the more effective it is. But even then, it's a very poor conductor, or a very poor way of transferring heat. So an example of this is if you look at the space shuttle, or not the space shuttle, the space station. There's a whole bunch of fins in the middle that are white. I think there's like 4 or 5 of them. And those are not solar panels. Those are actually heat sinks for the actual station. A big surface area. They pump liquid ammonia through there, and that cools down all the equipment that's on the space station. Same thing goes here. There's 2 chambers on the outside, and you can't see them. And they pump down a very good vacuum. The better the vacuum, the less other conduction or convection conduction components are added to this. Very, very high vacuum. This is pretty thick steel. It's actually pretty heavy, actually. And that means that whatever you put inside here, if you put cold liquid, which doesn't have a big of a temperature difference, it's like 40 degrees, can stay cold for like 24 hours, and hot, which might have a difference of like 120 degrees, can stay warm for about 6 hours. So what I can do is I can put my food on the stove, get it nice and hot, and then have a nice hot lunch without having to worry about it. So let me, I might have to put you down for a second. Let me do this, I guess. Whatever, it'll be black for a second. Hold on. And I'll open the top. I had a tripod, but I don't. So when we open it up, you can see that we have a gasket with what looks to be like a pressure relief valve, little nib, silicone gasket. You can see that it's got a pretty, there's only one small point that it actually touches, really, the both sides. It's very, very small, and there's little cups that fit inside of it. There's 3 of them. So here's 2 cups are this size, which is enough to fit like fruit and I don't know, some other type of vegetable. And then the last one is a little bit bigger, where your main meal would go in. So what I'm planning on doing is putting like rice in this one, some sort of meat in this one, and then something else. But the thing to keep in mind is that this is one chamber, and we can look at the inside. So if you put hot on the bottom and you put cold on the top, that won't really work, because they'll still be able to transfer up to the top here. And so you have to choose if you want a cold lunch for the day, you want to keep cold, or you want a hot lunch for the day and keep everything hot. Or you can just buy 2 of these things, which I wouldn't recommend because this thing is heavy. And so each one of these has its own pressure relief nib, one-way valve. Let's see if I can open this. Come on. There we go. One-handed things are never easy. You open it up, and it doesn't smell like plastic that much. It's a pretty stable plastic, it seems. It's got the ring, and it's no stampings on it, which is weird. And there's a little tiny gasket, which is just enough. I need a super thick one. And that's pretty much about it. So I'm going to test this thing out, see how good it is. Hopefully I stick to my plan of actually making lunch, which you never know. I get really busy, so sometimes your best laid plans don't really go as planned. So that's that for this guy. The other thing that I'm planning on doing is that I'm gonna have to change my laptop over to a Linux distribution. So I bought an extra hard drive for that, and we'll tear apart a Yoga and put that thing in. So have a good night. See you.